Hello and welcome to Play with K8's demo. This is a follow-up video after Play with K8's concept, where I explain what is Play with K8, its purpose and more. I hope you have watched that video, and with that, let's get started discussing the high-level overview of this Play with K8's demo. This demo is primarily divided into 4 steps. In step 1, we will create 4 VM instances on Play with K8's website. 1 will be the master and 3 will be the worker nodes. Then in step 2, we will initialize the master node and install pod network plugin on it. After that, in step 3, we will configure the remaining 3 nodes as worker nodes and join them to the Kubernetes cluster. And finally, in step 4, we will deploy a sample Nginx application and test to make sure if everything is working as expected. So these are the steps that we're going to perform in this demo. With that, let's get started with creating 4 VM instances on Play with K8's website. In step 1, we will log into the Play with K8's website and create 4 VM instances. 1 VM for Kubernetes master and 3 VMs for Kubernetes worker nodes. So to log into this website, you need to have either GitHub or Docker account. Once you have it ready, then let's get started. Now we are on Play with K8's website landing page. As I mentioned earlier, you can log into this website using GitHub or a Docker account. So I'm going to use my GitHub account to log into this website. And let's go ahead and log into this website. And we are successfully logged into this website. And now you can start your session by hitting the start button that you see here. So let's go ahead and start this session. Finally, we are inside the Play with K8's website, where we can create VMs and deploy the applications. First thing you will notice after you log in is this timer that you see on the top left corner. So you have a timer for 4 hours. In next 4 hours, you can create up to maximum of 5 instances and play with Kubernetes. So to set up this Kubernetes cluster, we will create 4 VM instances, where node 1 will be configured as Kubernetes master and node 2, 3 and 4 will be configured as Kubernetes worker nodes. Creating VM inside this website is super easy. So let's go ahead and create these VMs by clicking on add new instance. Now we are done with creating 4 VM instances. So far in this step, we have successfully logged into Play with K8's website and created 4 VMs. It is very super easy, right? And now let's move to the step 2. In step 2, we will configure the Kubernetes master using kubectl init command. Once that is done, we will set up the cluster networking using Wave plugin by running kubectl apply command. Play with K8's website provides these 2 commands at the beginning of node session. And now let's get started configuring the Kubernetes master node. And now we are on node 1, which we are going to configure as Kubernetes master. If you observe, there are 3 commands that are provided to us. First command is used to initialize the Kubernetes master. Second command is used for configuring cluster networking. These 2 commands are mandatory to run before you join the worker nodes. Once a cluster is up and running, then you can run the third command, that is deploying a sample Nginx application. First, let's go ahead and run kubectl init command, which is the first command in this list. As you can see, it started smoothly. This command will take about a minute for complete execution process. So let me fast forward this. As you can see, it ran successfully. If you notice the output in the end, there are 2 things to note. 1, we need to run these 3 commands in order to start using kubectl. Second, it has provided join command in order to join worker nodes to the cluster. We will join the worker nodes to the cluster in a bit. But before that, we need to run these three commands in order to start using kubectl. And also, we need to configure the cluster networking. First, let's run these three commands. You are seeing this message because there is no sudo command in this VM. However, required files are in correct places. We should be good with it. Now, let's configure the cluster networking by running kubectl apply command that was provided to us at the beginning of this node session. So, let's go ahead and copy that and run it. As you can see, we have successfully deployed Wave Network plugin on Kubernetes master. So far in this step, we have run kubeadm init command to initialize the Kubernetes master. Then we executed three commands in order to start using kubectl, and finally we deployed Wave Network plugin. And now it's time to join the worker nodes to the cluster. So let's move on to the step 3. In step 3, we will join 3 worker nodes to the Kubernetes cluster by executing kubeadm join command. So now we will run kubeadm join command which was provided to us in the kubeadm init output. And now let's copy that kubeadm join command and run it on node 2, 3 and 4. Here it is. Let's go ahead and copy this and run it on all worker nodes node 2, 3 and 4. First, let's execute this one on node 2. And now on node 3. And finally on node 4. And we have successfully joined these 3 worker nodes to the Kubernetes cluster. And that's all for this step, and it's time for testing the entire Kubernetes cluster setup that we just configured here on PlayWithK8's website. And let's do that as part of step 4. In step 4, we will first display all nodes that are part of Kubernetes cluster and we'll check for their status. Second, we will deploy a sample Nginx app by running kubectl apply command. And finally, we will display pods that are created as part of above deployment. So let's get started with displaying all nodes inside the Kubernetes cluster. Now we are on Kubernetes master. You can display all nodes inside Kubernetes cluster by running kubectl get nodes command. So let's go ahead and run that command. As you can see, all 4 nodes are in ready status, and that's a very good sign. Since all nodes are in ready status, including master and the worker nodes, and now let's go ahead and deploy a sample Nginx app by running kubectl apply command. And this is the third command that was provided to us right at the beginning of this session. And let's go ahead and copy that command and execute it. As you can see from the output, Nginx deployment and service has created successfully. Now let's verify the status of pods by running kubectl get pods command. There you see all 3 pods are still in process of downloading and creating Nginx containers inside the pod. So let's wait for a minute and run it again. Now let's go ahead and rerun it again. And this time we will run with void output. There you see all 3 pods are running successfully on node 2, 3 and 4. So from above all 3 test results, nodes inside the clusters are ready and we have successfully deployed sample Nginx web application, and finally we verified pods are in running status. And it's time to wrap this up. And before we end this demo, let's review the steps we have gone through for one last time. In step 1, we created 4 VM instances on PlayWithK8's website. 1 is master, 3 are worker nodes. Then in step 2, we initialize the master node and install cluster network plugin. After that, in step 3, we configure remaining 3 nodes as worker nodes and join them to the Kubernetes cluster. And finally, in step 4, we deployed a sample Nginx application and tested to make sure if everything is working as expected. And that comes to the end of this demo. Hope you have enjoyed it and see you in the next video.